Hello again, everybody. Hope all is well and you're staying safe in these difficult times. Today, I would like to share with you about my own experience of having Asperger's. Firstly, and just to remind myself, as it's still something I'm learning about every day, what is Asperger's, and most importantly, who was Hans Asperger? Well, according to Wikipedia, Asperger syndrome, also known as Asperger's, is a neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by significant difficulties in social interaction and nonverbal communication, along with restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior and interests. What is Asperger's syndrome called today? Today, Asperger's syndrome is technically no longer a diagnosis on its own. It is now part of a broader category called Autism Spectrum Disorder, or ASD. This group of related mental health issues shares some symptoms. Even so, lots of people still use the term Asperger's. Source: www.webmd.com. Who was Hans Asperger? Hans Asperger, 1906 to 1980, first designated a group of children with distinct psychological characteristics as autistic psychopaths in 1938, several years before Leo Kanner's famous 1943 paper on autism. And I got that from https://molecularautism.biomedcentral.com. One was the first time I could remember being different from the other children. Before I reveal to you the age where it was all revealed that I'm an Aspie, I'd like to tell you about the first time I could remember being different from the other children, and that was back at primary school in Sweden, around the age of 6. And I'd already been assigned a special needs teacher back then before moving to England a year later. I also remember eating orange slices for the first time with the other kids at nursery, sitting in a circle, and in the middle was a candle. I was mesmerised, and perhaps that was the first time I ever experienced meditation. As for the special needs teacher, I remember being guided into a small room one time, which had an old small wooden school table in there for me, and the sun was shining through the window. To the right of the table was a big dark green chalkboard. Then the next time I had a meeting with a special needs teacher, that was in a bigger room that looked like a lab due to the neon blue tones, but that's all I can remember. So how did it feel moving to England? Moving to England at the age of 7 felt so abrupt in my own eyes, and I became, well, quite disorientated. Why were we moving to England? Would we ever be returning back to Sweden? Why wasn't my father coming with us? Why were we leaving him and everything else behind in Sweden? Perhaps these were all the questions running through my prepubescent mind, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was the first time that unwanted anger built up inside of me, and it would make sense every time my mum and my stepdad got upset with each other about something so trivial, and it would take years and years to work out that I, myself, am not relationship material, and that I will accept that I've never understood any kind of relationship. But it wasn't until I moved to the Bournemouth area in 2012 that I would feel like I'd finally settled down in England. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. How old was I when I found out that I was diagnosed with Asperger's? Well, I was 16 on that day. I remember as if it was last week. I just come back home from sixth form college, and it's very likely I had a bad day on that day, because I know that I really took it to heart what I was just about to find out from my mum. Before I continue, my mum and I have always been close, and there's this dinner table in the kitchen where my mum would always teach me about the meaning of life based upon her own experiences. She shared a lot of personal stuff with me, for example, her relationship with her family in Thailand and her relationship with my father, and then on this particular day, she decided it was time for me to read a progress report written by the school psychologist of Downton Church of England Primary School, where I did my time with my brother from 1987 to 1992. I had to read through it partly due to being considerate of my mum's wish, and at that present moment, as well as my curiosity increasing, and of course I thought nothing of it at first. By the end of that report, I became an emotional wreck. What the hell is Asperger's syndrome? Is it some kind of life-threatening disease? Am I going to die tomorrow? Don't forget, I was just a naive teenager at that time. But when I started transitioning from my assigned gender to the gender I now identify as, I became more open-minded about it and started looking into it, as well as putting all those pieces together to be able to accept that part of me a lot more than even today. I'm still learning and aiming to become less and less naive about it. I could tell you about what the school report said, but the whole gist of it was basically how I behaved when I was assigned my first special needs teacher back in Downton. How I was assessed with different life tasks such as reading, writing, speaking and listening, and my least favourite, math skills. Apparently I'd always been an eccentric person, even at school, and did things regarded as not normal behaviour. But hey, who wants to be normal anyways? I suppose back in the 80s and 90s, lots and lots of things were considered as weird and eccentric, but nowadays it's just seen as well. Seen and heard that before. Next. There was only one major time when I was looked down upon because of having Asperger's, and you think that's by the other kids, but no. It's by a teacher called Miss West. Thanks to me, I don't think her legacy of being so cruel lasted very long, but even until this day I can totally relate with Matilda's story, whether it's based on a true story or not. Once she started working out at school, she made me sit in front of the class away from the other students and especially my friends. She would always find some way to look down on me and treat me with neglect. She never complimented any of my work and criticised it instead. I will never forget the day I found out the hard way what a whoopee cushion is. I walked into the classroom and as I went to sit down, I saw it on my chair. I had no idea what it was, but I still sat on it anyways. Obviously, you know what happened next, and I felt absolutely humiliated. She would also send me to Co-op supermarket, which was 5 minutes away, as an exercise with my special needs teacher to buy her ingredients for making a cake as part of my progress report with my math skills. She was such a horrible lady, but fortunately was replaced by Mr. Judd, whom I got on with, but sadly, he was quite nasty to my brother. Oh, bless him. For some strange reason, I would never have a special needs teacher again until I went off to university and I was failing my art degree, until my friend Charlie Ross, my ex-colleague, and the guy that cast a spell on me to become the musician that I am today, suggested I do the same as what he did and get myself assessed for disability learning allowance, which I passed, and which was to remind me as well as educate me of having Asperger's. If it wasn't for him, that assessment and the special needs teacher, I would have definitely failed my bachelor degree in fine art. So the next question would be, would I say that having Asperger's is a blessing or a curse? Well, it sure felt like a curse to begin with, but the more I accepted it and became aware of it and started using it in a positive way, for instance, my art, my music, my poetry and all other creative endeavours, it's now a blessing and a way of life for me. On the other hand, I know I'm not capable of holding a proper job or coping with reality like my brother and the rest of my neutral family does, but they've always been as supportive as they can of me being different, and now it looks like I will be able to get some financial support from the government with help from Maggie from Citizens Advice Bureau and a social support worker, just in case anything happens to my family, meaning I would not be able to support myself financially. It helps having a successful younger brother who lives 5 years into the future and not in the past or present, I suppose. Just like Bob Marley once sang, everything's gonna be alright. So, what can you do to help raise the awareness of such an invisible disability? Well, it's a lot more simple than you think. All you have to do is what I do, and that is to be aware of the 10 characteristics and share this knowledge with your peers. Asperger's characteristics. 1. Intellectual or artistic interest. 2. Speech differences. 3. Delayed motor development. 4. Poor social skills. 5. The development of harmful psychological problems. 6, detail orientated. 7, persistence. 8, not socially driven. 9, high integrity. 10, masters of routine. And I got that source from appliedbehavioranalysis.programs.com, and I'll link all those things down below. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you found it useful, and let me know what you think in the comments, and take care for now. Namaste.